Everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. Glad you are here. I just realized I forgot to put the time when I put the topic up. So many of you did not receive your email or your alert that you were supposed to. So I hope that doesn't hurt our viewership today. Thank you for being here. And as I should say more often, thank you to those of you that are watching on replay. We have anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 viewers every day. And most of those, a vast majority of those are folks that catch a bit of the show on a replay. So if you're watching on replay, thank you. Thank you to everybody that shares, because sharing is caring. That's how we get the message out there. So thank you very much for doing that. So Janice, great to see you. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. First in wins. Scott, great to see you. Thank you for being a part of the show every day. I appreciate that more than you know. So thank you very much for that. Hey, as people are joining us here today, I want to mention again, of course, the Distinction Summit. I did a virtual webinar, yesterday on what the number one issue is that holds most businesses and professionals back. If you missed that live, and I know we had a little bit of audio challenge during it, we've fixed that, edited that. If you'd like to see the replay, there are links available on all the social media places where you follow me. So if you'd like to take a look at that, that is available for you. You'll find the link right there. One of the things it will say is there are scheduled replays, but I set it up so that if you'd like to see the replay, when you go, it'll give you the option to watch it immediately. Okay, so you don't have to wait for the schedule to come back around. The schedule's there. If somebody wants to say, hey, I'm going to watch it this particular time. If you'd like to watch the replay, though, it's set up so that all you got to do is to click it and say, show it to me now, and you can see it right away. So check out distinctionsummit.com. The Standout Earn More Distinction Summit. I hope it's on your calendar for October 16th through the 18th. We'll talk more about that before we're out of here today. So here's a question for you. If two products are exactly alike, which of the two would you prefer? If two products are exactly alike, and I mean even in terms of the same price for the products, if they're exactly alike, in everything, in every way, including the price, which of the two would you prefer? I'll give you a second to think about that. Let me ask this. If two service providers are exactly alike, even in terms of price, if they're exactly alike, which would you prefer? Think about that for a second. If they're exactly alike, in the case of everything, which of those providers would you prefer? All right, Janice, the cuter one. Of course. There you go. I love that. Okay, but they're exactly alike. They're even exactly alike in terms of cuteness or handsomeness or whatever term you would prefer to use there. Right? They're the same. I would hazard a guess. Now look, one of the things you've heard me say a lot is if both options are exactly the same, then it becomes a price play. You know, which one has the lower price? That tends to be what we choose. But I'm telling you here, so if they're exactly alike, even in terms of price, which one would you prefer? And I think most of us, when it comes to something like that, oh, you know I'm talking about Paris. Randall's 140 miles southwest of Paris, Ohio. I didn't mention Paris, Ohio in that, did I, Randall? I mentioned Paris, Texas, but there was a movie about that. But didn't mention Paris, Ohio. Yeah, there you go, Scott. The one you're more familiar with is probably, I think you're exactly right. What I put down here is that we would tend to go with the original, the originator, and that's probably, to your point, Scott, which is a great one, that's probably the one that we're most familiar with, right? They were the original. They were first in. they're the one we're most familiar with, and that's who we would typically go with, right? I mean, we would choose the original. So I found something I thought was really, really interesting today. It's a story in Business Insider. And Business Insider had a story talking about this French photographer. And he went to this city in China. And in the city in China, they have constructed it to be exactly like Paris, France. I mean, it's exactly like Paris, France. The name of the city is, I hope I get this right, Tianducheng, China. Tianducheng, China. And what they did was, as the population was growing, and it's near a metropolis. This is a suburb. What they did was, and there, as you might imagine, a suburb in these cities in China has as large a population as Paris, right? I mean, I'll never forget many years ago, I was doing a program for an insurance company, and was sitting next to the CEO, and I said, you know, what is the biggest area of growth of life insurance? And instantly he said, oh, it's China. It's absolutely China, not just because of the population, but because of the changing culture. And I said, well, help me out there. What does that mean? And he said, well, before there was really not a need for life insurance in China for most families, because you took care of your parents until they passed, and then your kids took care of you until you passed, and on and on and on, because you never left the city in which you were born, and the families lived together, you know, all of that. All right. But now, he said, as China has expanded, the kids may want to move to Beijing, or the kids may want to move to, you know, Shanghai or someplace else. And so they want to make certain that the parents are taken care of. So they take out life insurance for the parents, or the parents take life insurance for themselves, or whatever it might be. So we're having this conversation that I thought was really fascinating. And then I said, so are you based in Beijing, or where did you base your Chinese operation? And he said, oh, you haven't heard of the city. You haven't heard of it. It's centrally located. We put it there. And I'm like, well, what, like he said, no, it's a town of about 1 million people, but in China, that barely makes you worthy of being on a map. He said the city's not on a lot of maps. Now, I had a hard time wrapping my head around that. You know, I'm from Crothersville, Indiana, population 1,500 people, and it's on the map. And I cannot imagine a city of 1 million people, and it's not map worthy. Does anything talk about just the sheer population size there? 1 million people, and because that's so small, it's not on a lot of maps. Oh my gosh. It's just hard to wrap my head around something like that, right? So imagine, if you would, a suburb of a city in China that's as big as the population of Paris. But that's basically what they have at this particular city. So you know what they did? They recreated Paris. They wanted to make their suburb unique. And so what they did was to recreate Paris. So this photographer from Paris goes and does a book about it. He look, I mean, look right there. Is that incredible? I mean, as it says, the one on the left is Paris, and the one on the right is China. The one on the left is Paris, and the one on the right is China. The one on the left is Paris. The one on the right is China. If you saw this picture on the right, would it even cross your mind that that might be China. It's amazing. So there, I thought was a fascinating point, right? I mean, look at the streetlights. But notice what it says there. Besides the architecture, the city in China hasn't adopted a thing from its French counterpart. What does that mean? Well, first of all, one of the things that I want to get this book. It's the photographer did a book about this, and I want to get this book because well, you can see there the book is what €8.95, which 12 bucks, and it's got an offer of 10% off. But it's just absolutely fascinating to me to look at these buildings and to look at how they're just just the same. That is not the Eiffel Tower. That is France or China. See, I'm even hooked on the thing. So why do I find that so fascinating? Because one of the things that I talk about is we talk about creating distinction. And one of the things I find is so important is that we say that we want to be original. So the buildings and the monuments were exactly the same. The photographer, who's from Paris, France, even said that there were times he was confused because there was a part of his brain that knew he was in China. There's another part of his brain that knew exactly what street to take because it was an identical replica. So, a couple questions for you. First question is this. If you had a choice to visit that city in China or Paris, France, and you hadn't been to either one of them, where would you choose to go? Now, some of us may say, "Oh, wow, I'd love to go see China." But for most of us, if you haven't seen Paris, France first, then going to see the replica is kind of like, in a way, it's like a blown up example of Epcot, right? I mean, it's not the same. And Charles, yeah, part of what they're doing in China is, there's a course here in Las Vegas called Bear's Best. And what they've done is to take the best Jack Nicklaus holes from all the golf courses in the world that he's designed, and they do a replica of that hole here in Vegas. And so it's a golf course that you can play, and it's supposedly his 18 best holes that he's ever designed. China's kind of doing a similar thing, right? They model a city exactly like, another famous city in the world. And so, yeah, Ellen, and so there you go. I mean, they might have a building that looks like the Louvre in this replica city, but they don't have Mona Lisa there, right? I mean, for most of us, Janice, I agree. I can't say for every one of us, but for most of us, first of all, we would go to the original. We would want to see Paris, not the replica. So if we're going to create distinction, if we're going to stand out from the competition, it means we can't imitate them. So they interviewed this photographer that had spent all this time there, and they said, okay, so the Eiffel Tower was an identical replica, and the buildings were an identical replica. What didn't they replicate? What was the difference between Paris, France, and essentially Paris, China? And he said the one thing they couldn't replicate is the culture and the people. The culture and the people. So in other words, even though the buildings were identical, there's a different culture in France than there is in China. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to say one is superior or inferior, but what I am saying is they're different. And even if the building is the same, you can't replicate the culture of it because you can't replicate the people and the history and all of those kinds of things. So what does this mean to you? It means you can't differentiate by imitate. I know that's not perfect English, but it rhymes, so I went with it. You can't differentiate by imitation. When you imitate, you don't differentiate. Sound like Johnny Cochran there for a second, didn't I? Couldn't resist. But the point is, even if your product is the same, your people make a difference. Yes, absolutely, Janice. The ambiance, just the feel, just how it is makes a difference. The original idea is, yeah, they replicate everything. Yeah, exactly. Charles, that's been part of it. I had a speaking tour. Excuse me. I had a speaking trip a while back, and I was speaking in Thailand and Malaysia. And part of the reason that they were bringing me over there was because they said, it used to be that everybody manufactured in China because China made it less expensively. Now they're moving to Thailand and Malaysia and Vietnam. And the reason that they're doing that is because we can manufacture it cheaper. But there's always going to be some place that'll build it cheaper. And so they said, we have to learn how to create distinction and deliver the ultimate customer experience. So I worked with some groups over there about that, because how do they build the culture and how do they train and work with their people to make it better? Yeah. If the gloves don't fit, you must have quit, right? And like I said, you can't differentiate but imitate. There you go. So even if the product is the same, your people create the ambiance, right? Your people create the culture, and you have to lead that. And your people are what makes it different. If the service is the same, you make the difference. You are the difference. Many, many years ago, I was attending a meeting. I was the director of leadership programs, summer leadership programs for the FFA. And this is an internship I had in my senior year of college, and then did it, between my junior and senior year, and then right after I graduated. And there was a national FFA officer at the time from Ohio, Rob Hubbas. Randall Reeder will remember Rob Hubbas. And Rob was one of the most deep-thinking intellectual persons, particularly to be 20 years old, that I'd ever met. And I will never forget, Rob Hubbas gave this speech about a subtraction problem. And with his permission, I used the example. But can you imagine a speech about a subtraction problem? And the title of the speech is "The Vinculum Has Been Struck." I had no idea what a vinculum was, but I have never forgotten the talk. So he explained all of the aspects of a subtraction problem, right? You've got the original amount, you've got the subtrahend, which is the amount that you're taking away. And the vinculum is the line in a subtraction problem, that line. And so his point was, the vinculum has been struck. What happens in a subtraction problem after the vinculum? That last number is called the difference. He said the vinculum has been struck. What remains is the difference. And what difference are you going to make? And so the point of all this is that you can't differentiate by imitation. So what can make you stand out? It's you. It's your people. It's your team. You make the difference. The thing that can't be duplicated is the culture where you work and how you contribute to that, and your people and how you deal with them. Charles, we want our iPhones to be built the cheapest way possible, but we want to pay hamburger flippers here a living wage. Interesting. It is an interesting point, isn't it? I saw where somebody posted yesterday I think someone that wears a helmet to defend our country should be paid the same as someone that wears a helmet to protect our quarterback. And we know that's not going to happen, but I really thought it was an interesting point, right? And all of that is a reflection of what our culture is, for good or for bad. The important point here is that when it comes to setting yourself apart, when it comes to creating distinction, it's got to begin with you. It's got to begin with what you do and how you do it and how you make it happen. You can build a replica of the Eiffel Tower, but it doesn't make it the Eiffel Tower. Why? Well, because of all of the people that have been a part of creating that culture and that ambiance and everything that goes with it. You know, I can take a slab of beef and I can follow the exact instructions that they make it, but it's still not having a steak at St. Elmo's in Indianapolis, or it's still not having a steak at whatever your favorite steakhouse might be. You know, sometimes you even think it's better because it's the outdoor grill and you got friends there and all of that. But there again, it's not the steak, it's the people. It's the culture. It's what you've done to create that difference. That's what it's all about. How do you create that uniqueness? Yeah, Charles, we got an Eiffel Tower. It's not built to scale. This one in China is built to scale, but you got one here. And Tammy and I've been up in it, and there's a Ruth's Chris that was there, and we've had a steak there, and man, it's fun to go to. But it's Paris, Vegas. It's not Paris, France. And even there, the people make a difference, right? So the challenge for all of us today is to get out there and to be the difference that we would like to see. Hey, I hope you'll check out distinctionsummit.com. That'll give you an idea about what we're going to be doing. We've got some big announcements coming about it. It'll be announced in the next few days. So hope to see you there at the Distinction Summit. I'm so excited. I know many of you have already signed up for it. And so thank you for that. I'm really excited that you're doing that. And I'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at the same time with another edition of Daily Distinction. Thanks for watching.